Welcome back to another busy week of Pittsburgh Steelers coverage here on the channel. There's no shortage of storylines right now, and honestly, it feels like things could pop off at any moment with the way the front office is moving behind the scenes. First things first, let's talk about that buzz over the weekend regarding Lamar Alexander. A lot of fans had been speculating that maybe, just maybe, the Steelers were secretly in the mix for the star cornerback, especially with all the chatter from a few weeks back. But according to a recent report from ESPN, it turns out the Steelers were not even on Alexander's radar before he ultimately signed with the Baltimore Ravens. That definitely caught some people off guard. The teams that were actually in the mix were the Ravens, the Atlanta Falcons, and the Miami Dolphins. Not a single mention of the Steelers, despite some whispers to the contrary. So what does this mean for Pittsburgh? Well, there are a couple of ways to look at this. Either the Steelers simply weren't that interested in Alexander in the first place, maybe because they didn't see him as a scheme fit. Or perhaps Alexander himself wasn't interested in coming to Pittsburgh. And when you think about it, the latter makes some sense. There's a lot of talk around how the Steelers might want to use a player like Lamar. The current thinking is that if Pittsburgh had landed him, they probably would have slotted him in as more of a nickel or slot defender, while leaving Darius Slay and Joey Porter Jr. to lock down the outside. Alexander has been an outside corner his entire career, and it's pretty well known that top guys like him don't really want to move inside, unless it's absolutely necessary, so that could have been a sticking point. But here's where things get interesting. This latest report casts some doubt on previous rumors that the Steelers were hot on the trail for both Alexander and Yolen Ramsay. Now, just because they weren't pursuing Alexander doesn't necessarily mean they're out on Ramsay. In fact, I still firmly believe Ramsay could very well end up wearing the black and gold this season. There are legitimate connections, and Ricky, who's been pretty plugged in on this stuff, has doubled down on Pittsburgh's interest in Ramsay. But still, with the new info from ESPN, it does make you wonder a little bit just how aggressive Omar Khan and company really are in pursuing top-tier corners. Speaking of Ramsay, let's dive into his situation because there's a lot more to it than just trade talks. His contract is complicated, and with so much noise floating around on social media, I want to make sure you guys have the clearest, most accurate info on what the financials would actually look like if the Steelers pulled the trigger on a deal for him. So, let's break this down. If Pittsburgh acquires Yolen Ramsay, his salary cap hit for the 2025 season would be just under $6 million. That includes his base salary, a portion of his option bonus, and workout bonuses. Pretty manageable when you think about it. But here's the catch. The Steelers would owe Ramsay a total of $21.1 million in actual cash this season. That includes an option bonus worth nearly $19 million. That kicks in at the start of Week 1. The reason the cap hit is so low is that bonus money would be spread out over the remaining years of his contract for cap purposes. So while the Steelers would only take on a cap hit of $5.9 million for 2025, they would still need to cut that massive check for over $21 million in real cash. And that's where things get tricky. Remember, the Steelers are still working on what we all hope will be a blockbuster extension for TJ Watt. Once that deal gets done, there's going to be a huge signing bonus involved, and a lot of upfront cash going directly into Watt's bank account. Plus, they already spent big on DK Metcalf earlier this offseason. So adding another massive check for Ramsay would really test Pittsburgh's financial flexibility. And let's not forget, the Steelers are known for being one of the more cash-strapped organizations in the NFL. They manage their cap well, but in terms of actual liquid cash on hand, they're not exactly on the same level as some of the league's bigger spenders. Now, there is a potential solution here. It's possible that what's being negotiated behind the scenes right now is not just draft compensation, but also how much of that $21 million the Miami Dolphins would be willing to eat. Essentially, if Miami agrees to take on a chunk of that option bonus, Pittsburgh would be much more inclined to send over something like a fourth-round pick to get the deal done. The Steelers actually have multiple fourth-round picks lined up for the 2026 draft, which makes this a very real possibility, and honestly, I think that's the sweet spot. If Miami is willing to take on some cash and Pittsburgh can get Ramsay for a fourth-rounder, that feels like a win for everyone involved. The Steelers get their star corner without completely breaking the bank this year, and the Dolphins offload a big contract while getting some draft capital in return. But just to be clear, the Steelers can afford Ramsay right now from a cap standpoint. According to Over the Cap, Pittsburgh currently has about $18.8 million in available space for the 2025 season. If you factor in Ramsay's $5.9 million cap hit, the Steelers would still have roughly $12.9 million left over to address other needs, like, say, adding another wide receiver or making a move at the trade deadline later in the season. So yeah, they could absolutely fit Ramsay under the cap. The real issue here is the upfront cash. That's the sticking point. And that's why I think these negotiations, if they're happening, are dragging out a bit longer than fans would like. But the interest seems real, and I wouldn't rule out a move happening in the coming weeks. Now, let's talk about Plan B. Because if the Steelers do miss out on Ramsay, there's another name that's starting to pick up steam as a potential target. Bleacher Report's Christopher Knox recently put out a piece suggesting that Pittsburgh would be a logical landing spot for none other than Mike Hilton. Yes, that Mike Hilton. The same guy who spent the first 4 seasons of his NFL career making plays all over the field for the Steelers' defense. Honestly, I've been saying this for a while now. Bringing back Hilton makes a ton of sense. He knows the system, he's a proven playmaker in the slot, and he brings that trademark physicality that Mike Tomlin loves from his defensive backs. And let's not forget, since Hilton left, the Steelers haven't really had a true replacement. At that slot corner spot, the production just hasn't been there for those who need a refresher. During his time in Pittsburgh from 2017 to 2020, Hilton racked up 9.5 sacks, 7 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles, and 32 pass breakups. Those are crazy numbers for a slot corner. He was one of the most disruptive nickel defenders in the entire league during that stretch. And even after he left for Cincinnati, Hilton kept playing at a high level. If you look at his Pro Football Focus grades, 3 of his 4 seasons with the Bengals graded out over 70, including a 75.9 last season. For comparison, Beanie Bishop Jr., the Steelers' current second-year slot option, graded out over 20 points lower. That's a huge gap. Hilton is not just more experienced, but he's simply better right now. So if the Ramsay deal falls through, and Pittsburgh still wants to shore up the cornerback room, Hilton should absolutely be at the top of the list. He fits the defense, he knows the culture, and he would provide instant stability in that slot role. But let's pivot now to something else that caught a lot of people's attention recently. A Bleacher Report article linking 4 potential trade candidates to the Steelers. The first and probably biggest name on that list is Terry McLaurin from the Washington Commanders. Steelers Nation has been buzzing about this idea, and I get it. Just picturing McLaurin in black and gold, lining up opposite DK Metcalf, is enough to get fans hyped. That's an elite one to punch at wide receiver. McLaurin's a Pro Bowler, a consistent 1,000-yard receiver, and he's done it all despite playing with the carousel of quarterbacks in Washington. Carson Wentz, Sam Howell, Taylor Heinicke, none of those guys were exactly top-tier passers, and yet McLaurin still put up big numbers year after year. But let's keep it real for a second. As awesome as the idea sounds, I don't see this being very likely. First off, Washington doesn't want to trade him. They're in win-now mode too. With a young quarterback and Jaden Daniels on a rookie deal, they need McLaurin as their number 1 target. Outside of him, their receiver room just doesn't have a true number 1 option. And even with the frustration McLaurin's reportedly feeling about his contract situation, I doubt the Commanders pull the trigger on a trade. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin is reportedly facing a tumultuous period within the team, with rumors circulating about a player contaminating the locker room. The whispers began after Tomlin's recent comments hinting at an internal issue affecting team morale and performance. Sources close to the organization suggest that Tomlin's frustration is palpable, and he believes one individual's actions or attitude are negatively impacting the entire squad. While no names have been mentioned, speculation is rampant among fans and sports analysts alike. Could it be a veteran struggling with a reduced role, a new acquisition failing to integrate, or perhaps a rising star whose ego is causing friction? The timing of these rumors is particularly sensitive as the Steelers aim to bounce back from a disappointing season. A divided locker room could derail their aspiration before the season even properly begins. Tomlin, known for his strong leadership, now faces the challenge of identifying and addressing the source of this alleged contamination. without further disrupting team cohesion. The coming weeks will undoubtedly be crucial in determining whether the Steelers can overcome this internal hurdle and unite for a successful campaign. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.